The night was dark, rain lashed down, the sky was a swirling mass of black clouds illuminated occasionally by flashes of lightning. Thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, adding to the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. The wind was relentless, howling through the trees and whipping the rain into a frenzy. It was a night that seemed to be conjured from the pages of a Gothic novel, a night where anything could happen. Wind howled through the trees, making the branches sway and creak as if they were alive. The forest was a dark, impenetrable wall, and the path through it was barely visible in the dim light. The storm had turned the ground into a muddy quagmire, making every step treacherous. It was a night that would test the mettle of even the bravest soul. It was April 26, 1777. The American Revolution was in full swing, and the colonies were fighting for their independence from British rule. It was a time of great uncertainty and danger, a time when ordinary people were called upon to do extraordinary things. A young woman named Sybil Ludington was about to make history. She was just 16 years old, but she had a spirit and determination that belied her years. On this stormy night, she was preparing to embark on a journey that would test her courage and endurance to the limit. She was just 16 years old. Most girls her age would have been safely tucked up in bed, but Sybil was different. She had grown up in a time of war, and she understood the importance of the cause her father was fighting for. She knew that the fate of the revolution could depend on her actions this night, but Sybil had the courage of a lion. She was determined to do whatever it took to help the revolutionary cause. As she prepared to mount her horse, she felt a mixture of fear and excitement. She knew the journey ahead would be perilous, but she also knew that it was her duty to undertake it. She was about to embark on a perilous journey. The storm raged around her, but she steeled herself for the task ahead. She knew that she had to ride through the night, through the storm, to warn the militia of an impending British attack. It was a mission of utmost importance, and she could not afford to fail. Sybil's ride would be long and dangerous. The path through the forest was treacherous, and the storm made it even more so. But Sybil was determined. She urged her horse forward, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. She knew that the fate of the revolution might depend on her bravery and determination. She was the daughter of Colonel Henry Ludington. He was a leader in the local militia, and he had instilled in Sybil a deep sense of duty and patriotism. She knew that her father was counting on her, and she was determined not to let him down. He was a leader in the local militia. He had fought bravely for the revolutionary cause, and he had inspired many others to do the same. Sybil was proud of her father, and she was determined to follow in his footsteps. The American colonies were at war with Great Britain. It was a time of great upheaval and uncertainty, but it was also a time of great hope. The colonists were fighting for their freedom, and they were willing to make great sacrifices to achieve it. The fate of the revolution might depend on Sybil's bravery. As she rode through the stormy night, she knew that she was part of something much bigger than herself. She was riding for freedom, for her family, and for the future of her country. And she was determined to succeed, no matter the cost. Sybil Ludington was no ordinary girl. She lived in Fredericksburg, New York. This was a small town. It was located in Dutchess County. Her father, Colonel Henry Ludington, was a respected man. He was a farmer and a miller. He was also a leader in the fight for independence. Colonel Ludington had a large family. Sybil was the eldest of 12 children. She was used to hard work. She often helped her father. She learned about responsibility at a young age. This would serve her well in the days to come. On that stormy April night, the wind howled through the trees, and the rain pounded relentlessly against the windows. The sky was illuminated by flashes of lightning, casting eerie shadows across the landscape. It was a night that seemed to foretell the chaos that was about to unfold. A rider arrived at the Ludington home, his horse panting heavily from the arduous journey. The rider's clothes were soaked, and his face was etched with urgency and exhaustion. He had ridden through the storm, braving the elements to deliver a message of utmost importance. He was exhausted. He brought dire news. Danbury was under attack. The British forces had launched a surprise raid, and the town was in chaos. The rider's voice trembled as he relayed the information, knowing the gravity of the situation. Danbury was a town in Connecticut, a strategic location for the Continental Army. It was a hub of supplies and resources, crucial for the ongoing war effort. The British knew this, and their attack was aimed at crippling the American forces. The British were raiding it. They moved through the town with ruthless efficiency, breaking into homes and businesses, taking whatever they could find. The townspeople were caught off guard, and panic spread quickly. They were destroying important supplies. The British soldiers set fire to warehouses and storehouses, watching as the flames consumed the precious resources. The smoke filled the air, a grim reminder of the destruction being wrought upon the town. These supplies were meant for the Continental Army. They included food, ammunition, and other essential materials that the soldiers desperately needed. The loss of these supplies would be a significant blow to the American cause. Colonel Ludington needed to gather his militia. He knew that immediate action was required to defend Danbury and prevent further losses. The militia was scattered across the countryside, and time was of the essence. They had to fight back against the British. The militia was the town's only hope of mounting a defense and driving the invaders away. Every able-bodied man was needed to stand up and protect their homes and families, but many of his men were scattered. They lived in farms throughout the countryside far from the town center. Reaching them in time to organize a defense would be a daunting task. They lived in farms throughout the countryside. The rural landscape made communication and coordination difficult. The stormy weather only added to the challenge, making the roads treacherous and slowing down any attempts to gather the militia. Someone had to warn them. The message had to be delivered quickly and efficiently. There was no time to lose, and every moment counted. The fate of Danbury and the Continental Army's supplies hung in the balance. That someone had to act quickly. The urgency of the situation demanded swift action. The rider who had brought the news was too exhausted to continue, and the task of spreading the word fell to someone else. Sybil volunteered for the dangerous mission. Despite her young age, she was determined and brave. She knew the risks involved, but her sense of duty and love for her country drove her to take on the challenge. Sybil mounted her horse, ready to ride through the stormy night and rally the militia to defend Danbury. Sybil mounted her horse, Star. She was just a teenager, but she was determined. She set off into the stormy night. Her mission was critical. She had to ride for miles. Sybil's route covered over 40 miles. She rode through rough terrain. She braved the darkness and the storm. She rode through Putnam County, New York. Then she crossed into Connecticut. Sybil's heart pounded. The fate of the militia rested on her shoulders. Section 5. Outwitting danger in the dark. The night was filled with danger. Sybil knew that. The moon cast eerie shadows on the forest path, making every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs seem like a potential threat. The Revolutionary War had turned the countryside into a perilous place, especially after dark. She could encounter British soldiers. These soldiers were known for their ruthless tactics, and being caught by them could mean imprisonment or worse. Sybil had heard stories of entire villages being burned, and innocent people being taken away, never to be seen again. Worse, she might run into outlaws or highwaymen. These men were desperate and dangerous, willing to do anything for a bit of money or valuables. They roamed the roads, preying on travelers who were unfortunate enough to cross their paths. These men were hiding in the woods. They preyed on travelers. The dense forest provided perfect cover for their ambushes, and many a traveler had met a grim fate at their hands. Sybil had heard tales of people being robbed, beaten, and left for dead. Sybil carried a stick for protection, but it wouldn't be enough against a weapon. She knew that a simple stick was no match for a pistol or a knife, but it was better than nothing. It gave her a small sense of security, even if it was mostly an illusion. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the trees. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw the shadowy form step onto the path. The figure moved with a menacing confidence, and Sybil knew she was in trouble. He blocked her path and demanded her money. Sybil's heart raced. She could feel the cold sweat on her forehead and the trembling in her hands. The highwayman's voice was harsh and threatening, and she knew she had to act quickly. She grabbed her father's musket and aimed it at the highwayman. The musket was heavy and unfamiliar in her hands, but she held it steady. She hoped that the sight of the weapon would be enough to scare him off. He was startled and backed away. The look of surprise on his face gave Sybil a glimmer of hope. She could see the fear in his eyes as he realized that she was not as helpless as she seemed. Sybil rode on, shaken but determined. The encounter had left her rattled, but she knew she had to keep going. The message she carried was too important, and she couldn't let fear stop her. She urged her horse forward, determined to complete her mission. Section 6. The Militia Responds. Throughout the night Sybil rode. She reached each farmhouse. She pounded on doors. Her message was urgent. The British are burning Danbury. "Gather at Ludington's mill, we must fight." Farmers and their sons sprang into action. They grabbed their muskets, they saddled their horses. Thanks to Sybil, they would be ready to fight. As dawn approached, Sybil finally returned home. She was exhausted. She was also proud. She had alerted nearly 400 militiamen. They were ready to face the British. Section 7. Victory at Ridgefield. The militia, led by Colonel Ludington, marched towards Danbury. They were too late to save the supplies, but they could still confront the enemy. The two forces clashed at Ridgefield, Connecticut. The Battle of Ridgefield was fierce. The Americans fought bravely. They were outnumbered, but they were determined to protect their land. The British suffered heavy losses. They were forced to retreat. The Americans had won a victory. This victory was due in part to Sybil's courageous ride. Section 8. Sybil's Legacy of Courage. Sybil Ludington's ride was a remarkable act of bravery. She risked her life for her country. She was just 16 years old. Sybil's story is a testament to the courage of women in the American Revolution. They played a vital role in the fight for independence, yet their stories are often overlooked. Sybil's ride may not be as famous as Paul Revere's, but it was just as important. She rode twice the distance. She faced equal danger. Sybil's courage deserves to be remembered. Section 9. A Hero Remembered. Today, Sybil Ludington is remembered as a hero. She is honored with statues and memorials. Her story is told and retold. Sybil reminds us that courage can come from unexpected places. Even a teenage girl can change the course of history. Sybil's ride is an inspiration. It shows us that one person can make a difference. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope and courage can prevail.